Welcome to the AEN Stories channel.
If you'd told me a year ago that I'd be on national television waiting for a stranger in a suit to tell me whether or not I was someone's father, I would have laughed, wiped my hands on a shop rag, and told you to lay off the gas fumes. But here we are. My name's Mark Bennett. I'm 37, I work as a mechanic at Ray's Auto Tire in a small town in Ohio that smells like a mix of cornfields, exhaust, and cheap coffee. I rent a little one-bedroom above a laundromat, drive a pickup that's older than some of my coworkers, and for most of my adult life, my biggest drama was whether a customer would actually come back for their car on time. I'm not saying my life was glamorous. It wasn't. But it was simple. Predictable. Quiet. Then my ex showed up with a kid on her hip and blew the whole thing to hell. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'd been at Ray's for about 11 years. Started there when I was 26, after a short stint bouncing between crummy jobs and making some choices I'm not proud of. Nothing illegal, just let's call them stupid in a way only your 20s can be. The shop sat right on the main drag, across from a Dollar General and 2 doors down from a diner that had the same 4 old guys in the corner every morning. My days were oil changes, brake jobs, mysterious clunks that turned out to be loose tools rolling around in trunks, and the occasional transmission job that made me question my career choices. I liked it. There's a certain satisfaction in taking something broken and making it run again. Engines are honest. If you give them what they need, they work. People not so much. I lived alone, not counting the neighbor's cat who'd decided my windowsill was his summer home. Nights were TV, frozen dinners, sometimes a beer with the guys after work. I dated on and off, nothing serious. After one particular relationship blew up pretty spectacularly a few years back, I'd more or less decided slow and quiet was fine. That relationship was with a woman named Jenna. We'd met when I was 32 and she was 30. She'd come into the shop with a beat-up Civic and a smile that belonged in a toothpaste commercial. We dated almost a year. It wasn't all bad. We had fun. We fought a lot too. She liked drama the way I like socket sets, frequently and in full sets. Eventually, it became clear we wanted different things. I wanted something steady. She wanted, I don't know, fireworks, chaos, something bigger than our town. We broke up. It wasn't pretty, but it was done. I hadn't seen her in over 3 years. Then, on a perfectly normal Thursday in April, she walked back into my life like some kind of tornado wearing lip gloss. I was under a truck when I heard the bell above the shop door jingle. Ray yelled, "Be right with you." And then, "Hey, Mark, lady asking for you." I slid out on the creeper, wiped my hands on a rag, and got up expecting to see Mrs. Coleman, who always asked for me because she said I didn't talk to her like she was dumb. Instead, I saw Jenna. And a little boy. She looked older, but still very much like the woman I remembered. Brown hair in a ponytail, big hoop earrings, the same "I dare you to underestimate me" look in her eyes. The kid on her hip looked 3, maybe 4, with a mop of curls and a Spider-Man t-shirt 2 sizes too big. For a second, my brain did that static thing where it can't decide what to focus on. "Hey, Mark," she said, like we'd just bumped into each other at the grocery store. "Long time." "Jenna," I managed. Yeah. Been a while." Ray, sensing either tension or an opportunity to avoid customer service, vanished into the back. She shifted the kid higher on her hip. "This is Lucas," she said. "Say hi, baby." The little boy looked at me with big brown eyes, blinked, and then hid his face in her shoulder. "Hi, Lucas," I said. "Nice to meet you." My stomach did a weird flip, because that kid had my nose. Not exactly, but close enough to make something tighten in my chest. Jenna smiled a little, like she'd been waiting for that reaction. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Outside?" I glanced at Ray, who peeked from behind a shelf and waved me off. Go. Truck's not going anywhere." So we stepped out into the parking lot, where the used tires were stacked and the smell of rubber and gasoline felt suddenly overwhelming. "What's going on?" I asked. She took a breath. "Lucas is 4, she said. My dates are, well, You can do the math, Mark. My heart thudded. It had been 3 years since I'd seen her. We'd broken up a little before that. We'd been, let's just say, not that careful near the end. I'd assumed nothing came of it. You think he's mine? I asked, voice quieter than I meant. She didn't hesitate. I know he is. I looked at the kid again. He'd twisted around to stare out at the road, kicking his sneaker against her hip. I didn't know you were. I started. Pregnant? Yeah, I left town right after we broke up, she said. Went to stay with my sister for a while. Came back about a year ago. I wanted to get my life a little sorted before I dumped this on you. Dumped this on you? Cute wording. Why now? I asked. She shifted her weight. Because I can't do this alone forever, Mark. He deserves to know his father. And you deserve to know your son. The word son dropped into the space between us like a wrench. My mouth went dry. Are you sure? I mean. She rolled her eyes a little. Yes, Mark. I'm sure. I wasn't exactly sleeping with half the county back then. It was you. I swallowed. The thing is, I didn't want to be the guy who refused responsibility if it was true. My dad left when I was 9. I remember what that felt like. I'd sworn I wouldn't be that guy. But also, 4 years is a long time. A lot can happen. And there was a part of me, small but loud, going, are you being played? I'm not saying no, I said carefully. But I'm not saying yes until we know. For sure. Her eyes flashed. So you think I'm lying? She asked. I think people remember things wrong sometimes, I said. All I'm asking is a test. DNA. Then we'll go from there. She pressed her lips together. I was hoping you'd be better than this, she said. But fine. We'll do it the hard way. She turned, adjusted Lucas on her hip, and walked away, her shoulders stiff. I watched them go, a knot in my stomach. Ray came out a minute later, wiping his hands. Everything okay? He asked. I have no idea, I said. Small towns are fast. I don't know how the neighbors found out so quickly, but by that evening, it felt like a quarter of the town was looking at me like they were measuring me for a child support payment. I live in a little complex, a row of 4 apartments stacked above one another along the side of the laundromat. Across the street, there's a line of single-story houses with porches and people who have nothing better to do than water their lawns and monitor everyone else's business. As I walked up the stairs that night, Mrs. Kendall, who lived downstairs, called up to me. Mark. She said, a little too brightly. You didn't tell me you had a son. I don't know that I do, I said. Yet. She gave the tight smile people give when they've already decided what they think. Well, kids are a blessing, she said. No matter how they arrive. Behind her, her husband pretended to be really interested in rearranging his trash cans. The next day at the shop, a couple of regulars made comments. Hey, Daddy, one of the guys joked. Heard you've been holding out on us. Didn't take you for the runaway father type, another muttered, trying to make it sound light and failing. I laughed it off, but it stung more than I wanted to admit. At the diner, I heard my name in a whisper, followed by poor girl and men never want to own up. The thing is, I hadn't even had a chance to own up to anything. I was still stuck on step 1, is this biologically true? Doesn't matter, apparently. In the court of public opinion, especially one fueled by small-town gossip, you're guilty until proven otherwise. And even after that, half of them will still think you got off on a technicality. At night, I'd lie in bed and my brain would replay the conversation. He deserves to know his father. You deserve to know your son. And under that, the memory of late nights with Jenna, fights and make-ups, the kind of reckless choices that feel fine until they circle back 4 years later wearing a Spider-Man shirt. I told myself I could have been careful. Then another voice said, yeah, but were you? Every time? Really? And that's how doubt moves in. Not all at once. Just a little voice, chewing on the edge of your confidence like a mouse on a bag of bread. 2 weeks later, a thick envelope arrived in my mailbox. I knew it was trouble before I opened it. The return address was a law firm in town that I'd only ever seen on billboards, family law, done right. Inside was neat, printed confirmation of something I'd half expected and still hated seeing in ink. Jenna was suing for paternity and back child support. There were phrases like alleged father and plaintiff claims and defendant denies any knowledge but may have had access, which made me sound like I was a suspect in a crime involving a human being and not whatever we were doing here. I sat at my tiny kitchen table, letter in hand, feeling equal parts angry and sick. On the one hand, if the kid was mine, he deserved support. No question. On the other hand, I hated being treated like I'd abandoned something I didn't know existed. I found a lawyer. Not the fancy billboard kind. Just a guy named Grant downtown who did wills, divorces, and the occasional dog bite case. He read through the papers, then leaned back. "Pretty standard," he said. "She's asking the court to establish paternity formally, then set support. You denying it?" "I'm denying knowing," I said. "I'm not saying no. I'm saying I want proof." He nodded. "Good. DNA test is inevitable anyway. We'll request it." We filed responses, there were dates on calendars, terms I only vaguely understood. Meanwhile, the gossip machine cranked up. Sections of church started choosing sides. Some people gave me encouraging nods, like I was heading into battle. Others looked at me like I was something stuck to their shoe. Then, just when I thought this whole thing couldn't get weirder, Jenna called me out of the blue on a Sunday afternoon. "You home?" she asked. "Yeah," I said warily. "What's up?" "I have an idea," she said. "A way to make sure everyone sees the truth. No more whispering. No more acting like I'm making this up." I should have hung up right there. "What kind of idea?" I asked. "You know that show, Truth Family?" she said. I did, unfortunately. It was one of those daytime talk shows where they dragged people onto a stage, aired all their business, and then revealed paternity results like it was the Super Bowl halftime show. "I don't like where this is going," I said. "I reached out to them," she said, ignoring that. "Told them our story. Baby, small town, man denying his kid, court case. They love it. They offer to fly us out, cover hotel, and pay for the DNA test. All in the open. No one can accuse either of us of hiding anything." "That's insane," I said. "We are not TV people, Jenna." "Speak for yourself," she said. "Look, this way it's fair. Transparent. You keep saying you want proof, this is proof. In front of everyone. They said they'd even help with legal fees once it's resolved." I rubbed my face. "Why would you want this on television?" I asked. "Our whole town already talks. You want the whole country to join in?" "Because right now, I look like a liar and you look like a deadbeat," she said. "This way, when the truth comes out, no one can twist it. You always used to say you had nothing to hide. Prove it." It was emotional blackmail and sales pitch rolled into one. I hung up, stewed for a day, talked to my lawyer. He wasn't thrilled. "I can't stop you," Grant said. "But I wouldn't recommend turning your personal business into content." "They're paying for the test," I said. "And the travel. And right now, everyone in town thinks what she thinks. If it's not mine, this is the quickest way to clear it, right?" "And if it is?" he asked. I thought of Lucas. His big eyes. The way he'd hidden his face. "Then I'll deal with it," I said. "Either way, at least we're done." I called Jenna back. "Fine," I said. "I'll do it." Traveling for a TV show is surreal. They sent plane tickets. It was the first time I had flown for something that wasn't a funeral or a bachelor party. They booked us in separate hotel rooms in a mid-range hotel near the studio, gave us a schedule, a list of don'ts: don't talk to the press, don't reveal results early, don't punch anyone on camera. The morning of the taping, a production assistant knocked on my door with a clipboard and a too bright smile. "Hi, Mark. Ready for your big day?" she chirped. "As I'll ever be," I said. They walked me through narrow hallways that smelled like coffee and hairspray. The studio itself, when I stepped inside, looked smaller than it did on TV. The audience seats were set up in a semicircle, already half filled with people murmuring, the stage lit up with bright lights. Backstage, they put me in a room with a couch, a table, and a bottle of water with the show's logo on it. A woman with a headset came in and ran me through what would happen. "The host will bring you out second," she said. "First he'll talk to Jenna and let her tell her side. The audience tends to side with the primary caregiver, just so you know. Don't take it personally. Just be honest. Our viewers respond well to sincerity." "I'm not an actor," I said. "What you see is what you get." "Good," she said. "That plays well." "Plays well. Like I was a character in their little drama." Another assistant came in with makeup. "We're just gonna take the shine down a little," she said, dabbing at my forehead with a sponge. "I work in a mechanic's shop," I said. "People are used to me shiny." She laughed politely. Then a producer came in and started asking leading questions. "So, Mark, how did you feel when Jenna showed up with the child?" he asked, eyes bright with interest. "Confused," I said. "Shocked." "Did you feel guilty?" he pressed. "Did you ever suspect?" "I felt surprised," I said. "Look, we were together. We made choices. I didn't know she was pregnant. I would have stepped up if I had." "Good, good," he said, jotting notes. "Remember that. The audience likes a man who says he'll step up." "I'm not saying it for them," I said. "It's just true." He smiled like that was even better. They did a quick pre-interview on camera, just me sitting in a chair answering questions. They'd edit that into some kind of intro package later, probably set to dramatic music. At some point, I heard muffled sound through the wall, Jenna's voice, louder, animated. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear, she was performing. My heart started pounding. "Okay," I told myself. "It's just a stage. A room. Some cameras. You know who you are. You know what you did and didn't do. The rest is noise." When it was time, the headset woman came back. "Ready?" she asked. "No, but let's do it anyway," I said. We stood in the wings. I could see the host out on stage, a guy in his 50s with perfect hair and the kind of fake sympathetic voice daytime TV lives on. He was sitting in a chair opposite Jenna, who was on the guest couch. The big screen behind them showed pictures, Jenna holding Lucas, looking tired but glowing, a blurry picture of me from my Facebook profile, probably grabbed without asking. "So, Jenna," the host was saying, "you've raised this boy on your own for 4 years?" "Yes," she said, her voice trembling just enough to be convincing. "I've worked 2 jobs. I've done everything I can. All I want is for his father to admit he's his and be part of his life." "And when you told Mark he might be the father?" the host asked. "How did he react?" "He denied it," she said. "He said he didn't know, that I must be confused. It was like he just erased everything we've been through." The audience made a sympathetic awe noise. I felt my jaw clench. "He's here today," the host said, turning to the audience. "Let's bring him out. Please welcome Mark to the stage." The assistant nudged me. My feet moved. The studio lights hit me like a truck. The applause was half-hearted at best. I could feel the energy in the room, suspicion, judgment, curiosity. The vibe said, "Here comes the bad guy." I walked to the chair opposite Jenna. She didn't look at me. "Mark," the host said, reaching out to shake my hand. "Thank you for being here." "Thanks for having me," I said, because that's what you say when someone invites you into a nightmare. He gestured for me to sit. "So," he said, turning his full game show empathy on me, "you've heard what Jenna had to say. How do you respond?" I took a breath. "I'm not here to call her a liar," I said. "We were together. Things were messy. I'm not proud of how we ended. But I didn't know she was pregnant. I moved on. She moved on. 4 years later, she shows up with a kid and says he's mine. I'm not saying that's impossible. I'm saying, I don't know. That's why I asked for a test." There was a little murmur in the audience. The host nodded. "So if you're the father?" he asked. "What then?" Then I'll be there, I said. I'll pay what I'm supposed to pay. I'll do what I can. I'm not trying to run away. But I also don't want to take responsibility for something that isn't mine if the science says otherwise. The host turned to Jenna. How do you feel hearing that? He asked. She sniffed. It's just hurtful, she said. I know what happened. I know the dates. I know he's the only one it could be. To have him doubt me after everything, it's just another way of saying I'm lying. A woman in the front row shook her head at me. Somewhere in the back, someone whispered, men, like it was a diagnosis. The host leaned forward, milking the moment. This has clearly been painful for both of you, he said. But today, we're going to get answers. No more doubt. No more he said, she said. Just the truth. He looked at me. How are you feeling, Mark? Nervous, I said honestly. But ready. Whatever it is, I want to know. Jenna? He asked. Confident, she said, lifting her chin. I already know. Of course she did. They rolled a pre-taped package then, shots of our town, my shop, Jenna in a park with Lucas. Clips of our interviews sliced together with dramatic music. The edit made it look like I'd spent the last 4 years dodging responsibility and she'd been heroically changing diapers in the rain. The audience clearly bought it. By the time the lights came back up, the energy in the room was fully against me. You can feel that kind of thing. It's like standing in front of a space heater set to judgment. The host did a little recap for the cameras, just in case anyone at home had missed the last 15 minutes. 2 people, 1 child, a small town full of rumors, he intoned. Today, the test will tell us the truth. He gestured to the side of the stage. Can we bring out the results, please? A stagehand in a show-branded polo walked out carrying a large, dramatic-looking envelope. The audience clapped like they were seeing a celebrity. He handed it to the host, who held it up like it was the Ark of the Covenant. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. My palms were sweating. I wiped them on my jeans, wishing for the millionth time that day I was back under a car somewhere covered in oil instead of under lights covered in other people's expectations. The host looked at us. In this envelope, he said, milking it, are the results of a DNA test that will determine if Mark is the biological father of Lucas. We knew that. Everyone knew that. But daytime TV runs on repetition and tension. He opened the envelope slowly, like it contained a bomb instead of a piece of paper. Jenna was leaning forward, eyes gleaming. She already looked like she was accepting an apology. The audience leaned with her. I sat back. Still. Quiet. It felt like there was nothing left for me to say until the paper spoke. The host unfolded it carefully. Paused for just a second more, professional suspense, then read. When it comes to 3-year-old Lucas, he said, looking at the card, Mark. Time stretched. Everyone held their breath. He glanced up, not the father. The room exploded. Half the audience gasped. The other half made the 2 sound like they'd just seen a magician pull a rabbit out of a hat and then slap it. I didn't move. I just exhaled. A breath I think I'd been holding since the day she walked into the shop. Not happiness. Not triumph. Just relief. Clean and sharp. Jenna, on the other hand, went white, then red. What? She stammered. That can't be right. There's no way. Run it again. The host held up his hands. These tests are very accurate, he said gently. We triple-checked the samples. There's no mistake. Mark is not Lucas's father. The camera zoomed in on her face. You could almost hear a producer in the booth yelling, "Get that shot." She looked at me like I'd personally rewritten genetics. You rigged it, she hissed. You did something. Pretty sure I don't have access to DNA labs, I said. She shook her head, eyes darting around, trying to assemble a story. Then the host said something that, later, I realized was his way of turning up the drama another notch. Jenna, he said, if Mark isn't the father, do you know who is? Silence. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Her eyes flicked, just for a second, to the side of the stage. The host noticed. Because of course he did. This was his circus. He turned to the audience. As it happens, he said slowly, there's someone backstage who may have some answers. The crowd did the "you" noise again. My stomach did a weird twist. Backstage? Someone? The host gestured toward the wings. Can we bring him out? He said. A man stepped onto the stage. Tall. Dark hair. Nice shirt. Nervous smile. I recognized him, vaguely. I'd seen him once in town, at the grocery store with Jenna. She'd introduced him as a friend from out of state. Turns out, friend apparently meant actual father of the child you're trying to pin on your ex. The audience reaction went into overdrive. People shouted things like, "Oh my God!" And I knew it. They did not know it. But everyone likes to pretend they did. The host smiled like Christmas had come early. Jenna, he said, this is Eric. We understand he's been in the picture? She stared at Eric, betrayal and panic written all over her face. For a second, it looked like she might bolt. Eric walked to the center of the stage, hands out. Jenna, I'm sorry, he said. They called me. They said. You told them? She snapped. You went behind my back? They asked if there was any chance, he said. I couldn't lie. The host, sensing the chaos starting to spin out of control, jumped in. Let's keep this civil, he said, which was hilarious given that his entire job was to toss gasoline on emotional fires. I sat there, watching all this unfold, feeling oddly detached. Like I was an extra in a movie that had just taken a wild plot turn. For months, I'd been the villain in people's heads. The man dodging his responsibilities. The deadbeat. And the whole time, the real story had been sitting backstage. Literally. The host turned back to me. Mark, he said, how are you feeling, hearing all this? I thought about it. Relieved, I said. Sad for the kid, because none of this is his fault. But relieved. And kind of glad we did this under bright lights instead of in the shadows, you know? The audience actually clapped at that. First time that whole day they weren't ready to throw tomatoes at me. Jenna started crying then, ugly, shoulder-shaking sobs. Some of it was probably real, embarrassment, fear, the realization that whatever story she'd told herself was crumbling. I didn't hate her. I wanted to, a little. But mostly, I just felt tired. The host did his best to spin it as a teachable moment about honesty and paternity and getting tests before making accusations. The audience nodded sagely, as if they hadn't all been silently judging me 10 minutes earlier. After they called cut, the energy drained out of the room. The lights dimmed. People shuffled out, already turning this into something to talk about over late lunches. Backstage, someone handed me a check, appearance fee, they said. It wasn't a fortune, but it would cover some bills. Jenna avoided my eyes. Eric hovered awkwardly nearby. I walked up to them, because I figured I should say something. For what it's worth, I said to Eric, he seems like a good kid. Don't screw this up. He nodded. I won't, he said. I didn't know how to step in before. I thought. He trailed off. I didn't need the rest. Relationships are messy. Fear makes people do dumb things. To Jenna, I just said, next time you're sure about something, maybe double-check before you drag someone onto TV. She flinched, then laughed once, bitterly. You always did have terrible timing for your sense of humor, she said. Maybe, I said. But at least it's honest. Then I walked away. Going home after national TV is weird. On the plane, no one recognized me. Or if they did, they didn't say anything. I watched a bad action movie and tried not to replay every second on the stage in my head. Back in town, though, people definitely recognized me. The episode aired a couple of weeks later. It seemed like everyone had seen it, even people who claimed they didn't watch the trash. At the diner, one of the old guys in the corner called out as I walked in. Hey, you're that guy. He said. From that show. The Not the Father guy. Yep, I said. That's me. My 15 minutes of fame. He laughed. Well, I'll be damned. They really twisted that girl up, huh? At the shop, a couple of regulars apologized. "Sorry we gave you a hard time, man," one said. "Should have waited for the facts." "Better late than never," I said. Even Mrs. Kendall downstairs softened. "I saw the episode," she said one evening as I came home. "Those shows are awful. But I'm glad the truth came out." "Me too," I said. For a while, the town buzzed about it. People love a scandal, even more when it resolves with a plot twist. Then, as all things do, it faded. Jenna moved, this time, for real, I think. I heard she and Eric were trying to work things out. I hoped, for Lucas's sake, that they figured out how to be decent to each other, even if everything else stayed complicated. As for me, I went back to work. Back to oil changes and brake pads. Back to freezing in the shop in winter and sweating through my shirt in July. Back to my little apartment above the laundromat, where the neighbor's cat resumed visiting my windowsill like nothing had happened. Every now and then, someone brings it up. "Hey, what was it like, being on TV?" they ask. Loud, I say. Bright. Less impressive in person. They laugh. Sometimes, I catch reruns while channel surfing. I'll see myself on the screen, stiff in the chair, trying not to fidget, waiting for a man with perfect hair to tell me if my life's about to change. I don't always watch. But when I do, I'm struck by how calm I look. Inside, I was a storm. Outside I just sat there and let the truth do its thing. That's the funny part, I guess. Engines, like I said, are honest. If something's wrong, it shows. You run diagnostics, you get your answer. People? We dance around it. Shout. Cry. Accuse. Hide. In the end, though, the truth is like that lab result in the envelope, it's just sitting there, waiting to be opened. And sometimes, when it finally comes out, you find out you're not the villain you were cast as. You're just a guy in a mechanic's jumpsuit, who asked for proof and got it. Who walked onto a stage under 1,000 judging eyes. And walked off with something pretty rare in this world. A clean slate. And, as it turns out, a story I can laugh about now, at least a little, whenever someone says, "Hey, weren't you that guy on TV?" Yeah. Yeah, that was me. But I'm back to being the guy who fixes your brakes. Which, honestly, is a much better role. Thank you for listening my story. If you want more raw, real, and gripping stories like this one, subscribe to the AEN Stories channel. Your support keeps these stories alive.